Hey, good Thursday morning, everybody. Welcome into the Exterior Home Solutions Volquest Mailbag Podcast. 865-524-5888, a free estimate if you dial that phone number and check out Exterior Home Solutions. Been local and trusted since 1999, proud presenting sponsors of the Volquest Podcast. And we've got tons to get into here today. I'm Eric Kane, alongside Brent Hubbs, Austin Price, and Grant Ramey on location. We're going to hit the basketball questions first before Grant Ramey has to go about his day. And with that, we will start with a question from Sam Smith. Scout on UCLA and Utah State. Who is the best matchup for Tennessee out of the Kentucky pod besides Troy? This, of course, would be a round of 32 matchup.
Matchup-wise, Utah State, UCLA. I mean, would you rather play the number 17 offense or the number 17 defense? Because UCLA is top 17. UCLA is top 35 on both ends of the floor, but they're number 17 on defense. So it'd be a little bit like playing a version of yourself. They're 35th on offense. Utah State is 17th on offense. I think 151st on defense. So it's interesting that two teams from out west are coming to Lexington, but I think UCLA is the number 7 seed for a reason. They would be the tougher matchup in the second round. What was the other part of that question? Who out of the Midwest regions the tougher matchups down the road?
Yeah, sure. Right? Go ahead and answer that.
I think Illinois is tough. I think they struggled down the stretch at times. I think they dealt with some illness across their roster, and they kind of bottomed out there in February, and it felt like they started putting the pieces back together after that. Obviously, Kentucky has beat Tennessee twice and gave Tennessee fits twice during the regular season. Who knows what they would look like? A third matchup in Indianapolis, I guess that is, for the Midwest. But Kentucky, man, they got Yakachunas at the point guard. They got a ton of talent. I feel like just watching them the last couple of weeks, it felt like they could be a team that messes up a region as a number 6 seed. But I think it depends on Kentucky. And usually when you talk about two teams like that, something happens and gets messed up along the way. So we'll see, who's there this time next week and what the matchups look like then.
We'll go to Vulcan next. He said, does the limited number for basketball team actually help the Vols in March Madness? He says, hear me out. The NCAA tournament teams notoriously shorten their benches. Vols have played that way all year long. Could it wind up being in some strange way helpful for Tennessee? Brent, what do you think about that?
I don't know. I mean, I think if you stay out of foul trouble, maybe you can do that. But I think Tennessee's lack of depth hurt them in the Florida game. Now, you're not playing back-to-back days for 3 days in a row, Grant, so that probably helps you a little bit there. But I think the biggest thing is your lack of depth. If you have foul trouble, is the biggest concern that I would have. I think you're always worried about legs this time of year, running out of gas, because we know Ziegler's going to play 37 minutes, right, and they're going to play a bunch of guys, 33 to 39 minutes in a game. But I think foul trouble is your biggest concern with your depth numbers this time of year.
Yeah, I mean, I think you saw it Sunday against Florida. Bishop Boswell playing the final, whatever that was, 5 minutes of that game after a couple guys fouled out, Chaz and Jemiah, I believe it was. I don't think the rotation would be any bigger if Tennessee had more numbers right now. I think if maybe J.P. Estrella had stayed healthy, maybe he's getting more minutes than, maybe you're not seeing Darlington Dubar if there's a J.P. Estrella that's healthy. I mean, obviously you want that guy. You want that size in the post available for a game like Florida. Tennessee didn't have it. I think there could be some, desperation. Like, this is the guys we got, and let's go to war with these guys, whatever the numbers are. I mean, they've made it work all season. You'd rather have a bigger rotation, but Rick has traditionally not played more than 7-8 guys this time of year, especially.
Kind of on that note, we'll go to Legacy Vol 6991. If Estrella had been healthy this year, how many minutes would he have played per game per what you guys were seeing and hearing before his injury to start the season?
A good bit. I don't know what the split would be between him and Felix. He would be playing meaningful minutes. He'd be playing big-time minutes, in my opinion. I don't know how much you can get away with playing him and Felix at the same time, so it's going to be dependent on just kind of, I don't know, what's the upside with JP versus Felix. I think JP can maybe give you a little bit more offensively. I think maybe Felix is a better rim protector. It bodes well for the future. That's a good problem to have because they need that kind of size down low. They need those kind of options. But he would be playing meaningful minutes. I think what you saw in that Elite Eight game against Purdue in the second half when he was battling against Zach Edey, I think that makes you believe that he could help this team a lot sooner rather than later. And it's just unfortunate it played out the way he did with his foot.
Austin, this is a pretty good question for you. Poster says, I know it's probably way too early, but any whispers or rumors about basketball portal prospects? I know Rick plays things close to the vest, but you boys are bound to sneak up on him occasionally. Any talk about transfer portal right now? Obviously, the NCAA tournament is starting today.
Yeah, there's a little chatter out there, but I mean, like, at this point, none of those kids are in the portal, so it doesn't defeats the purpose of talking about them. There's chatter about several, players just across college basketball with other schools, but specifically with Tennessee, a little bit of chatter, not a ton from what I've heard, but again, none of those kids are in the portal, so talking about them before they go to the portal, it's not the right thing to do.
Grant, when you look at the numbers on that, I mean, what do you think? I mean, point guard obviously stands out. What else do you look at? I mean, shooter, pennant driver. I mean, what do you think Rick Barnes and his staff are looking at? Maybe what's the number besides a point guard? What do you think the focus is?
The backcourt is the huge focus, the emphasis, because you're losing a lot of guys. You're losing a lot on the perimeter. You're losing, obviously, Zakai. You're losing Jemai. You're losing Chaz. You're losing Igor Milicic, a stretch four. You're losing Jordan Gainey. They're scoring off the bench, a shooting guard. So they're going to have to do really well in the backcourt, specifically on the perimeter, down to that stretch four. I mean, I think you like what you got with Felix and JP and Cade. Assuming all three of those guys are back, who knows this time of year what's going to happen. But you need that backcourt scoring. I mean, you got to have it. They're losing a ton there, and this was asked, I think, Monday Night Chat. Like they've turned this. Every program in the country has turned the portal into a process where you're building out as the year goes on. Like, we like this guy, this guy, this guy. If they enter the portal, we like these numbers. We're going to attack guys that are hitting certain efficiency numbers that you've had success with in the past. So. There is obviously a huge amount of work that goes into that, and Tennessee's attention will turn more fully to that. The coaching staff, everybody, once the season ends. But right now, it's kind of everybody focused on one thing: NCAA tournament.
They need at least one point guard. They may need even two, or at least someone like a Gainey who can play off the ball and bring the ball up if need be. Just because, I mean, I don't think Bishop Boswell has shown you enough this year to go, oh yeah, he's definitely a guy that can run the show a year from now. So I mean, the whole guard dynamic here is going to be interesting to me, because I think you need at least one, potentially two, if you can't find a Gainey type combo guy.
And you need Amari Evans, the incoming freshman, to be somebody that can give you minutes, somebody that can hold their own for 10 whatever minutes a game this time next season. Physically, he looks the part, and he's been playing in that overtime elite league in Atlanta, so he's not going to shy away from high-level competition, but you need him to be a guy that it's going to be hard to stick him on the end of the bench and just not expect anything from him when you're trying to start over the way this team's going to have to in the post. In the backcourt.
I think the basketball portal scene is just really, really interesting, because I think it's evolved a great deal the last 2 or 3 years.
More fun.
I think teams are more organized than they were, a couple of years ago from an NIL standpoint for the portal. But I also think, I mean, when it comes to the football portal, everybody's kind of looking Power 5 or Power 4 to Power 4, right? I mean, you're sitting there and you go, okay, well, if you're going to take a shot in the dark from a guy at a mid-major in football, like, that's a real leap. And there's been some examples of guys who have been successful in doing that. But much of the football transfer is SEC to SEC or Power 4 school to Power 4 school. Whereas in basketball, man, like, you can get a guy, and obviously Dalton Connect's the one that stands out, but you got Chaz Lanier. But there's a lot of mid-major players, Grant, who just were under-recruited coming out of high school. Maybe they grew a little bit late. Maybe they just didn't get seen with their AAU circuit or whatever the case may be. It feels like the pool there is bigger and can be a little more fruitful. But, man, you better be really organized, because I think everybody has kind of caught up to where some of those early teams were in terms of how they managed the portal early on. It feels like everybody's got a much better feel for it around the country.
Yeah, I mean, there's 360 some odd Division I teams, and there's 13 scholarship spots on all those teams. Like, there are going to be guys that slip through the cracks. There are going to be guys that don't qualify out of high school to go to junior college that, have to take their time and kind of climb the ladder. I mean, you're looking at, Dalton Connect went from Northern Colorado, where he wasn't even first team all whatever the name of that conference is. I can't even remember at this point. to a
Big
guy that was in Big Sky. Sounds right.
Big Sky's either that one or that was where McAllen Castles came from. I don't know which one.
Or the might be the
Sounds
same
right.
thing.
In the part of the country.
So from that to the 17th overall pick in the NBA draft to playing for the Los Angeles Lakers to Jordan Gainey goes from USC Upstate, where I think the capacity of their gym's like 800, and you're like, who is this kid, and is he going to be able to play at this level? And 2 years later, he's developed into one of the best players on this Tennessee basketball team. So I think it's just easier to slip through the cracks, despite how crazy the summer is with AAU and kids getting seen. It's just hard to see everybody, and you got to turn it into a science. And what you've had success with in the past, you need to target those kind of guys. You need to target those kind of, like I was talking about earlier, efficiency numbers, whatever, and attack it. And I think that's what Tennessee does. I think that's what everybody does. They very much turned it into a science.
And I think coaches are much more open to it than they were. I mean, Rick jumped on it early. Give Rick Barnes credit for an older coach, a veteran coach, to embrace it the way he has. I think everybody's embraced it now, as opposed to recruiting a high school player. I'm not saying you don't recruit a high school player, but if it's a guy that you think is a developmental high school player, you're almost more comfortable with him going off to a smaller school so he can get a bunch of minutes and play a bunch and kind of develop his game, keep a relationship with him, and then, oh, hey, in another year or 2 years, we'll look at you from whatever small school you're at and give you the stage, because that's almost an easier path to sort of go minor league baseball with those guys a little bit than taking a guy out of high school that you say, well, you hope he's ready for you in 2 years.
I mean, it's European soccer where you can just loan a player out so they can go get minutes somewhere else and develop their skill set and then come back to you. But I mean, yeah, what's crazy is everybody at this time of year is asking, what's Rick going to do? What's Rick going to do? What's his future? Well, you better figure it out quickly, because you're either all in or all out in April, because that's when the rosters are changing. That's when you're building your portal class. It could be as simple as, do I like this class of portal kids prospects on my board, or do I not like it? Do I want to rebuild my roster with this group, or do I not want to do that? But you better decide in April, because the wheels are turning quickly.
Here's a question for any of you guys, based on what you've heard. ZJS Vols, Coach Gainey to NC State have any traction?
I don't think so. I think they'll go with a sitting head coach from somewhere. I don't know who that'll be. I just
They're looking pretty hard at
Will Wade. I think Will Wade would be the perfect man for that job, to be the kind of villain that goes up against the Duke, North Carolina establishment. I think Gainey will get an interview if he hasn't already interviewed, but I think they'll go towards a sitting head coach.
Okay, the last one's a couple of questions from Wrong-Handed, last basketball one. Since this podcast will come out before we have more basketball content, I'll ask a couple of questions for next year. Basketballs have been on an upward trajectory offensively the last couple of years, 35 4 years ago, winning the SEC tournament, 28th last year, 17th this year. Question one, what do they need to do this offseason to keep moving up the ladder on that side of the court? He said, for reference, 7 straight national title winners have been in the top 10 offensively.
Replace Chaz Lanier with another scorer that's in the vein of Chaz Lanier or Dalton Connect. I mean, that's been the biggest year-over-year addition for this team, obviously. Replacing that kind of production that you found in Dalton Connect with a Chaz Lanier. But it's obviously going to be a lot more than that moving forward, because Zakai's gone, and because Gainey's gone, and because you have so much to replace in the backcourt. They're 18th, I think, right now in KenPom offense. That's as high as they've been all season that I remember. Consistently been, I guess, or for more than just a couple days. They are trending the right way. I think you saw it in Nashville during the SEC tournament. I think Greg Valencia's got something to do with that in the last couple of years, his NBA background, and just kind of the way the offense has changed a little bit. But I think it just depends on personnel, talent, what you can get out of the portal coming up, because you're going to have to replace so much scoring. If you're going to continue that upward trajectory, you better kill it in the portal.
The second question, which 2 teams not in the top 10 offenses this year have the best chance to win it all and break that streak? He says Tennessee, wink face. And what would that other team be? For reference, Grant, I don't know if you have it in front of you, but he does list the top 10 offenses: the Floridas, Alabamas, Dukes, Auburns, Missouri, Texas Tech, Purdue, Kentucky, Gonzaga, Houston. So Tennessee, and what other team not in the top 10 offensively has the best chance to win the dance this year?
I mean, Tennessee's on that list because they're 18th on offense and they're number 3 on defense, and that puts them way up the list because no other team's kind of in that neighborhood or that good defensively. I think you look at Wisconsin. I think they are number 13 on offense and maybe 27 on defense. They've had a really good year. They've got some good talent and can score it. They're not the Wisconsin teams I think everybody thinks of from the past. I think Illinois has pretty good numbers in that list as well. But I think Tennessee would be one of those that's up there for sure.
I throw Michigan State into that ring too. I don't know what their
Michigan
numbers
State, they are 5th on defense. They are 27th on offense. So, yeah, they would be on that list as well. And it's March, it's Izzo, it's all that stuff. They've been there. They know how to do it.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Grant, I know the time of this recording, not much time in Lexington already, but at the time this podcast comes out, it'll be game time a couple hours later this evening. What are the vibes? What's the scene like as fans and media personnel starting to flood into Lexington here for this first weekend of the NCAA tournament?
I think the low of 27 on Thursday. That's all you need to know. Lexington, I don't think it's ever been above 30 degrees in this city.
How was that run this morning at 6:30?
The sun never shines. The sun never shines.
Hey, and it's not sunny right now. The run was fine. The hotel has sidewalks and it goes into a little residential neighborhood and it's all flat. So that's glorious. The temperature is going to be dropping the next few days. I don't know. It's going to be very strange. I haven't been to Rupp yet today or since we got up here, but it's just going to be strange going into a gym that Tennessee plays in once a year that's so familiar with, that they've been up here so many times for an NCAA setting. It's going to be strange. It's as close to home as they've been since they went to Murfreesboro in the late 70s, if you can believe that. They haven't played in the SEC gym since 77, I think, at LSU. So it's very rare that you, A, stay this close to home and B, get a gym you're familiar with and not just some NBA gym and fill in the blank city.
Are you going to City Barbecue in honor of Hubs?
Is that what I need to do? I don't know. You tell me.
Should. It's excellent. It's an excellent place to visit. If you like
barbecue. You send me the address. We'll get there.
All right, I'll do that. I'll take care of it. I figure you've got 3 or 4.
Man of War. Man of War.
Yeah, I figure you've got like 7 restaurants scouted out anyway, so it'll be.
There's nothing that's not on Man of War. I'll tell you that much. I was driving last night. I almost just instinctively pulled off on Man of War.
There's an old Rafferty's up there. At least there was.
Bill Rafferty?
No.
Onions.
Yeah, onions. Double order.
Grant Ramey, Rob Lewis, going to be up there in Lexington at Rupp Arena here tonight. And, of course, for Tennessee's potential round of 32 matchup, all the coverage Tennessee in the NCAA tournaments right here at Volquest.com on the Journal's Quarters. Best coverage out there, so dial it in. $1 for 7 days. If you're listening or watching us or not a member, you want to sign up now for the great NCAA basketball coverage from Volquest.com. Plenty more football questions here in the mailbag, but first let's get a word from our friends over at Exterior Home Solutions.
You know, life happens, and damage to your home can be extremely stressful. That's why it's important to find someone who offers efficient, quality work with financing options. Exterior Home Solutions, they value not only family, but community. And they're who I call when life happens, and you should too.
That is Exterior Home Solution, 865-524-5888, online at exteriorhomesolutions.com. Jump into the football questions now, and we'll go to the A-Dog here first. I'm curious about agents for college players. The NFL requires agents to have professional degrees, ongoing training, annual certification through tests. Fees are also capped at 2 to 3%, depending on how long the player's been in the league. There are no such rules that I'm aware of for college NIL agents. In your experiences, how professional are these agents that players are using? How much money are these agents taking away from the kids?
Well, it varies. But some are extremely professional because some of them think big picture. Some of them are a part of big firms, Brent. And then some are not, right? Some are a little more fly by the seat of their pants and, making it up and winging it as they go. But there's a lot of professional agents out there. But again, and then there's some kids that don't really even have an agent. Everything just goes through their aunt, their uncle, their mom, their dad, whatever.
Yeah, and I think the number of quote professional agents is growing as this thing has continued to evolve. I think you're certainly seeing that more with the transfer kids, Austin. When guys go into the portal, and it feels like those guys have more quote professional agents, because I think they're looking at it differently than you look at it when you're 17 years old coming out of high school. I think a lot of people in the transfer portal are picking an agent that could very well be their agent for life, as
Right.
opposed to when you're 17 and you're not really sure what any of it is. Now, education is going to continue. I think you'll see it grow more in a traditional true agent than what it's been. But I do think there's a little bit of a different mentality with the transfer kids versus the high school kids, or at least there has been the last couple of years.
Nico's pocket presence. Anything on Tim Merritt? May have missed it, though, or may have missed it. Thought he was an early enrollee, but haven't heard much of his name so far. Brent, anything on Tim Merritt that stuck out to you over the last week of spring ball?
Well, he's an early enrollee. He's here. I mean, he's probably not gotten not been as noticeable in the individual drills that we've been out there compared to, Dylan Lewis or Trey Poteet. Of course, Poteet met the media, so there's going to be more talk about him. We've seen Dylan Lewis work more, I guess, at some star stuff and that's a position you're looking at because who's going to back up Boo Carter? I don't think there's anything negative about Tim Merritt at any point, but I mean, we're just getting started in spring. I mean, there's not buzz about every freshman out there right now. And that doesn't mean they're bad players or they're not ready or they're not going to have a chance. It's just that, I mean, they practice 4 days and essentially 1 day in pads.
Yeah, that's a good point too. I mean, the guys that meet with the media, there's obvious buzz there because they've spoken, and other players we've asked other players about said players and all that. So, just getting started 4 practices in. Let's go to Bud Fox. How big a dark horse would Star Thomas be to lead our backfield in touches in 2025? Kane mentioned on the Monday Night Chat he seems to be able to do a little bit of everything. Austin, I would consider that a dark horse for sure, but I mean, he's going to play, but leading the backfield in touches, I don't know about that, right?
Yeah, he's a pretty big dark horse for me on that. So, again, I'm not saying that it can't happen. I'm just saying at this stage in time, nothing about it feels like that he's going to lead the backfield in touches. Again, what we've seen is, a different philosophy going from Jerry Mack to Sims, and, Coach Sims seemed to like a smaller rotation a year ago. Well, he's got some bodies, he's got some options. And when you have options, then you either, have somebody that gets left out or you have to adjust what you did a year ago. Now, there is no Dylan Sampson as far as like bell cow, leader in the room, the guy that got the whole team together and rallied the troops before every game. That guy's gone. So you could see, in theory, Hubbard, a shift in how Darrell Sims rotates his running backs. I mean, potentially, I guess.
Well, I think you have to also could factor in last year to start the season. I mean, Peyton Lewis had carried the football for about 2 weeks, because he was hurt and missed spring and missed the summer. So he was really playing catch up. So it was very easy, in my opinion, heading into the season opener to say, my top 2 backs are Dylan Sampson and the guy who's going to spell him is Deshaun Bishop because Peyton Lewis is not ready. Now the question is going to be when you get to August this year, is it 2 guys that you feel really good about and then Star Thomas is trying to catch up? Or do you feel really good about 3? Do you feel really good about 4? I think the running back rotation in September is going to be a pretty interesting storyline. Just on A, where's Darrell Sims' philosophy? And B, because I think we all feel, or at least I feel like Bishop and Lewis are currently ahead of everybody else. I think that way. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I
think that way too.
The question is, where does an experienced Star Thomas factor in? Where does a DeJuan Morris factor in? I think that's going to make. I think where they stand end of August heading into the season is going to be a pretty interesting storyline in terms of they playing 2, 3, 4 running backs this fall.
Another question here from the poster. What's the chatter about Lance Hurd, Larry Johnson right now? Is Hurd seemingly in better condition, and is Johnson in the mix for significant playing time?
Well, I think both those guys are in better shape. I think their bodies are in better shape. Larry Johnson clearly looks the best he's looked since he's been here physically. I do think Hurd has been better. Now, we're getting ready to get into, real practice, real physical contact, scrimmage, getting after it every day. I mean, it's easy to look that way, I think, in shorts and shells, out there. But I do think Hurd's in a better physical state than he's been in. And in terms of Johnson, we'll see. I mean, I've said it now. I'll continue to say it. There's a large investment into David Sanders. Okay. Now, do they play 3 tackles? Yeah, potentially, right? But I don't think Larry Johnson's going to be the flip guy, AP. I don't think he's going to play right and be the backup at left or be the backup at both spots. So the question becomes, who's your backup at left tackle, and what does that look like when you get to August? Because you're not going to settle that one right now, I don't think.
No, but the interesting part is if you think David Sanders is your future at left tackle,
Exactly.
like
is he your swing guy?
Putting Bennett Warren over there on the left side and having him learn left tackle all year doesn't make a whole lot of sense if you think you're shifting David Sanders there next year. So,
Yeah.
I mean, you're right. I mean, this team has got so many interesting parts to it, like the unknowns, just kind of how how the dominoes fall. It's one of the reasons I'm more intrigued about this football season than I've been intrigued about a football season in a long time, because you just don't know in a lot of different areas, and don't know doesn't mean bad. It just means you don't know.
Well, and you don't know but you have expectations. When you didn't know in year one, you just didn't know, and you didn't really know what to expect. Well, now there's an expectation for this program. When you look at the schedule, Eric, you look at what they've done the last few years, you've created expectations, and now you have a bunch of questions that go with that. Back to the posters question, I think it's really interesting. Eric, I think David Sanders is the most qualified swing guy, right? A guy who can play right or left, but he's been on campus a hot minute. Like, can you realistically get a guy ready to go to be your right tackle, and then if there's some reason you needed to rotate, he flips in the middle of a game to left tackle? And oh, by the way, he's 18 years old and he's playing his first ever season of college football. I mean, that's a big ask right there. But from a talent and physical standpoint, he would make the most sense to be able to play right and left.
Yeah, I mean, in a perfect world, he's your starting right tackle, snap one, game one, and he's your flip guy. Hurd gets hurt. You take Sanders, put him over at left. You bring in Larry Johnson, Bennett Warren, whoever it is. But, I mean, you brought it up there, 18 years old freshman. I mean, that's a lot on the plate, okay? And, like, he's got all the physical makeup in the world. He's going to be a stud, and I think he'll be good this year. He's going to play a lot, but he's still 18 years old. And so, like, keep it simple, stupid. Put just enough on the plate, let him learn, let him grow, let him rep. And I think that is more realistic, at least for this spring, certainly, and then likely into fall camp. So, back to Austin's point, I'm super intrigued kind of how they play that. If Sanders is going to be your left tackle next year, and Bennett Warren theoretically could be your right tackle the year, so does it make sense to have Bennett Warren over there on the left side all year long? I don't know. I mean,
but is it too much for a true freshman to go, hey, figure out both sides?
Yeah. End of the day, you got to focus on winning right now, and I recognize that. But I think it's kind of interesting in that regard. And so, I mean, that kind of leads me to this next question. Nashville 615, starting off at the tackles game one. Larry Johnson, Bennett Warren look like they've transformed their bodies. Is there real competition at those spots? We all agree that David Sanders is going to play this year, but could there be another discussion about this on the board earlier this week? Is there discussion of, like Brent said, playing 3? Maybe Larry Johnson starting game 1, week 1, but then Sanders coming on? Well, they haven't even practiced twice in full pads, so we have no clue. But what do y'all think about that?
I don't think there's been any conversations about who's starting. I think all coaches are going to roll with veterans during spring practice because they don't want any knee-jerk reactions coming into that spring portal window. Yep. So, like, whether you're an elite offensive tackle, an elite receiver, an elite anything, you're going to play your role in spring, and that's, not running with the ones unless the coach is just very content with whoever it is walking out the door. Now, when we get to fall camp, that's when you'll start to see movement. So I judge nothing by spring. I told Volberger this when, he talked about David running against the 2s and 3s and he got beat by some 2s and 3s. Like, it's the first week of spring practice. You're not judging anything of anyone, especially true freshmen. Like, like that's of course they're going to get beat. That's what happens every year. When a kid gets to campus, he gets beat. He should get beat. He's going against college kids who've been in college weight rooms. Even the best of players are going to have moments when they first get to campus. So, you just hope that they continue to progress through spring. You want Larry Johnson to continue to improve, continue to tweak his body, continue to hone his craft. That's what you want because you want more depth. Whether that's David Sanders, Larry Johnson, Bennett Warren, Lance Hurd, all these guys need to continue to take a step. Like none of them should be content and complacent with either riding in here with 5 stars or losing a little bit of weight like Larry Johnson or last season for Lance Hurd. They all should be looking to take a step.
Another question here from Nashville 615. Interesting. It'll never happen, but it's a great idea. Colorado is trying to schedule an exhibition game for spring. Could you see this becoming a trend? I think the answer's
I'm going to go yes. I think that this is a potential option down the line.
I don't see it ever happening.
Like a game, no. Now, do they get together like the Cowboys and Raiders and have practices together?
Right there. That's
what I mean. That's
okay.
what I mean. That's what I mean. Not a game. Not a game. Not a full. Not even a full blunt. But like you do scrimmage 11-on-11 work against teams and practice together.
Yeah, I agree with that, Brent. I think the joint practices, NFL training camp style, makes so much sense. As far as the game, I don't think it's going to happen. But I think you need to. And if you do that joint practice for 2 or 3 days, you got to open some of that for fans because again, we live in a world where.
Now that's where I go the other direction. I'm gonna go with Hubs on that.
No. I'm saying this will never happen, but it should. When you live in a world where there's talent fees and you got to do this and you got to do that, you're asking so much of your fans. Like you got to give them something. And if you're gonna do away with the spring game, you should give them something. It will never happen. I recognize that, but I mean, how cool would that be, right? I mean, NFL franchises do it every single year. Like it would be.
But NFL players are under contracts for multiple years. We have coaches who are not going to host spring games because they don't want somebody to see something about their players because of the portal. We have coaches who are not doing team periods in spring practices because they don't want to give the appearance of a depth chart in order for somebody on their current roster to pack up and leave. So we're going to bring a team in and let them scout the talent on the other team and get their NIL money together so you can walk out of that joint deal and go, hey, man, tell your agent to give us a call because we'd like to talk to you when the portal window opens here in late April. I think that would be a really good thing to do. I mean, it's not going to happen. There's no coach. Deion Sanders is different. That's great. And I understand Coach Brown at Syracuse said, hey, call us. We'll come play, whatever. Those are the exceptions and not the rule. Okay. I mean, Clemson's not coming to Knoxville to practice for 3 days in spring practice before the portal window opens so everybody can evaluate everybody's talent and see who they want to try to pluck from somebody. It's just not going to happen under the current setup.
So you're telling me that a school 1 week over, which announced 6,000 starters on both sides of the ball last year on the Jumbotron, is not going to do that.
I mean, I don't think it's just here.
I know. I get it.
You got Matt Rules, and again, I know Dabo says, well, we're not worried about that to the transfer portal and everything else. I mean, listen, everybody's evaluating everything. That's why coaches don't want routes versus air filmed and put in 4 minutes of highlights on a website because they don't want some other school looking at.
Can't film this.
Yeah.
Can't film this.
I mean, that's just that's that level of whatever you want to call it, paranoia, protection, whatever. That is not going away in the college game. Now, you get guys under contracts for multiple years, maybe we're having a different conversation, but nobody's going to let their players come audition for another team for 3 days of workouts.
And again, this is a conversation for another day. This is a bigger picture conversation. We go back to what we continue to talk about. Move that stupid spring window, get rid of it. And then whether it's spring or joint practices or OTAs in May.
I think no spring window, all those things that we just talked about are more of a realistic possibility.
100%. Yeah. And so, and I mean, that's a real possibility of them at least moving the window or shrinking the window or doing something with that window eventually.
Yeah, well, we'll see how many lawsuits come out of it when they reduce the window. Somebody's preventing my opportunity to go do what I want to do. They're not giving me the freedom to move.
Well, you had one a month and a half earlier, buddy. You should have jumped in there.
Well, welcome to the new world where, if you get a hangnail, you transfer. Your girlfriend breaks up with you, you transfer. If you get left out of the NCAA tournament, you sue.
Right.
I mean, that's what everybody does now. They just sue. We're going to sue. We'll just use our state and sue, I mean, Tennessee did the NCAA, and they did it because they had to, because the NCAA was being ridiculous. But the point is like everybody's reaction to anything is transfer, sue, like just go those routes.
I just, again, I think when you have no national legislation, you've got no chance of having national legislation because every state's doing whatever they want to do in their own ways. I just think getting it all cleaned up and tightened up and buttoned up is going to be really, really hard in the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I just hope that eventually, and it might not be from anything we discuss here, I just hope eventually they find a way to give something to the fans who they ask so much for.
I agree. I mean,
I agree with that. You're not going to get an argument from me. I don't debate that in any way, shape, or form. And listen, I think part of that, Austin, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I think part of that is not just letting them see something. I think it's accessibility. I think it's the touch. I think it's getting, quote, your hands on guys a little bit, or at least getting to know guys a little bit and meeting them and those type of things. I mean, that is, in the college football world, that is gone. It still happens in baseball to a little bit degree. I think it happens in basketball, but in the college football world, man, there's like an iron curtain between fans and players right now, or teams.
And it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that way. These are a lot of schools, administrators. I've talked to people on campus. I'm like, why did you do away with the autograph day? Well, NIL. These kids will gladly sign. They don't want to sign for, some guy in Lenore City who's decided he's going to take all these signatures and put them on Facebook and make money off of them. But for these kids, and for just for the real fan that actually wants to get an autograph from Nico Iamaleava or Arion Carter or whoever, these kids will gladly sign.
Yeah,
like that's not a real thing. Like that's just hiding behind NIL and trying to distance. I disagree with that. I've always disagreed with that from the moment they started doing away with autograph days and stuff, because you're right. These fans are going to be asked to pay $10 to go to the spring game. Well, what kind of game are they really going to see? It's an organized practice. Like, give them something. Like, the prices keep going up and up and up, and that's fine. Like, I get it. It's the price of doing business, and it's the price of this era. But you got to get a little something back for it.
Yeah, the villains of college baseball, the reigning national champions, the bad boys and all that, Tony Vitello's villains, I know it's different, but after every single home game, several of those players walk over the net and they sign autographs for kids.
Sign them.
Every game.
Every time they go to a game, and it doesn't matter if they've already got, Cal Stark's autograph or Billy Amick's autograph or whoever. They want to do it again. They just like it because it's their heroes. Don't you remember when you were a little kid, you go to a UT game or a professional game, and you're like, oh wow. I'll never forget going to Thompson-Boling Arena and watching Michael Jordan and the Bulls play the Wizards, or the Bullets back then. That was an awesome thing. You see your heroes. Same thing, with kids that go to watch a game at Lindsey Nelson or Thompson-Boling or Food City Center, or Neyland Stadium.
Yeah, no doubts. We'll go to Caden now. Top priorities in this year's recruiting class, Austin Price.
I'll tell you, it's receiver. You only have 7. You got 2 committed. That's big. Tristan Keys, I think, would be a huge addition. I think you want to continue to add interior defensive linemen. I think an edge is very, very important. I think linebacker continues to be, they had 3 last year, but I still think, that's important as well. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. You already have your tight end committed. You already have your quarterback committed. Because we've talked about this. Tennessee's decided to go all in on a premier running back. I'll tell you, running back and Savion Hyder. I think, trying to go get him is a big deal. It's a change in philosophy because Tennessee's not went that route the last several years, but he is a primo high-end guy, and Tennessee's all in on him.
And those priorities may change, as you go through the season, depending on
what you have. Yeah,
who's going to be back, who's not going to be back. All that's always changing. Now, the portal can help fix some of those holes, but it's always evolving. It's very different than it was 5 or 10 years ago when you were projecting 2 years down the line, 3 years down the line. We need this, we need that. You're not really projecting that far down the line right now. It's about where you get impact guys from.
Yep.
Russie Shack, 2K24, redshirt sophomore offensive lineman Messiah Reddick was a surprise omission from the initial spring roster, but has not announced anything about jumping in the portal. Is there any indication he is quitting football to focus on school or just preparing to leave in the April window.
Masai Reddick has been a practice participant. Masai Reddick didn't even go to the team hotel on game days. He would, he would meet the team over there for the ball walk and walk down and all that stuff. I mean, I don't see football in his future unless he decides to transfer way down and play.
Everett Vol 96. I had a blast watching Isaiah Campbell's first presser. During your time covering the Vols, who was one player that immediately left a great first impression after your meeting with the media for the first time?
I thought about this question, and I think it's a great question. And I've thought about it. I think it's a little bit hard to answer that question for me through the years because you knew those guys so well before they got to campus. Like for a lot of people, it's the first time seeing Isaiah Campbell, right? But like Austin, you've talked to Isaiah Campbell multiple times. And through the years, covering recruiting, you talk to those guys multiple times. So your impression from them is already there before they ever get in front of the UT backdrop to meet the media. So I don't know about who had their first quote media session on campus and you went, wow, man, that guy's really, really different because you already got a pretty good feel for some of those guys, or a good number of those guys before they get here.
Yeah. And, Isaiah Campbell, like he is going to be the Alex Golish of defensive linemen. Like when he meets the media, he's going to take 4 questions. He's going to talk 15 minutes. He is long-winded. He likes to talk, not in a bad way. Like that's just who he is. He is a personable kid. Like, he thinks things through. He's smart, intelligent, but he's long-winded. And so like, he's going to present well. Like fans are going to like him because he's got going to have a smile on his face and he's going to give you thoughtful answers. And so, you're right. I mean, a lot of times we've talked to them on camera, at length. So like hearing them, we're not hearing them for the first time. Fans maybe that haven't really followed recruiting that close or whatever, but we're not. So it's hard to kind of really answer that question.
I'll say this too, Eric. I think players now are so much more polished coming in as freshmen than they were several years ago, that it feels different than it did. Because there were a lot, and there's still some that come in and that's the first time they've done interviews, but there's a lot of people who have done, a lot of these kids have done a ton of interviews the last 2 or 3 years of playing high school football before they ever get there. So you don't have to do the old weeks and weeks of media training to get a guy ready to put him in front of cameras because those guys have done just a ton of interviews, but generally before they get to campus.
I mean, your 5-star plus off of the tackle prize was on the Paul Feinbaum show, reaffirming that he was coming to Tennessee. I mean, like it's a different world right now for sure. David Keith fan, what is this out of Anson Siebert's recovery? Pitcher had Tommy John last spring. It was a draft risk, but coming to Tennessee, he's not on the active roster. He's recovering. All indications are he's doing just fine, but he won't pitch this year. Not even on the active roster, but big plans for his future. A lot of talent there for sure. If healthy, could have went to the draft, and I think could have went the professional route last summer. Do you see Levi Clark getting any time behind the plate this year? He's been practicing there this spring. Outside of a midweek game, no. I mean, you're pretty stacked there defensively with Peebles and Stone Lawless, and Stone's looked incredible back there. I think they definitely trust Bargo more than Clark behind the plate right now as well. So outside of a midweek, no. But long term, first base behind the plate, that's probably in Levi Clark's wheelhouse. Right now, just focus on hitting 5th in the order and being the designated hitter as a true freshman. Sam Smith, 2233, has got a baseball question. Kane, do they start the kid from Gettysburg on Saturday and let him ride? That would be Tegan Coons. Saturday, this weekend's game 3 because they start on Thursday night tonight. Yeah, I mean, why not, right? And I think we were all kind of perplexed. We talked about on Tuesday's podcast, like, why didn't you let Tegan Coons kind of go? It was like they flipped the lineup card over one time, then took him out. Like, I understand training wheels and being cautious and all that, but he looked great. That was not even a season high in pitch total. So I think that they didn't announce it. They're going to do Doyle, Phillips, TBD. But I think it'll be Tegan Coons for sure, in my opinion, because you're going to go to other guys earlier in the weekends before you would go to Coons. So I think Coons on Saturday makes so much sense. And then, just ride some bullpen behind him. All right, we'll go to QG Vol 37. Is this the deepest the SEC is currently right now between football, basketball, and baseball?
Yes. With football being, quote, weaker this past year.
The weaker.
But yeah, it's definitely the deepest they've been.
16 wants to know, what do you make of the Shady Hayward interview in which he said the reason he decommitted from Tennessee was because they stopped talking to him?
They didn't stop talking. They didn't stop talking to him. He had a family member that got all involved in that deal. Like, and it is what it is. Like, hey, listen, you go be great somewhere else, just like you could have been great here. Like, I think Shady's a fantastic player. It was a blow for Tennessee not to get him. There's no sugarcoating that, but no reason to say those tough things. Tennessee did not stop recruiting him. That's ridiculous. Like, he was uber important to them, right? From Tim Banks to Willie Martinez, right through, some of the QCs who, like Danny O'Rourke, who worked that relationship for months and months and months and, were super involved. That's just simply not true.
ETSU Vol, who has the greater upside, the lower ceiling, Merklinger, McIntyre, or Faison?
Well, I mean, I think from a physical standpoint coming in out of the gate, I think Faison is going to be more college ready than the other two were. Now, how does that translate mentally? I don't know. But Austin, I feel like from a physicality standpoint, Faison would be the more college ready guy compared to Merklinger coming out of high school or George coming out of high school from a physical standpoint.
Correct. That's right. He just a little bit bigger, a little thicker. So when he gets here, he'll have less time in the system. The other guys will have had at least 1, if not 2 years in the college weight room. Another one, another unknown that you look forward to a year from now. Like, where does Merklinger think he's at? When he gets playing time this fall, because Nico ain't going to take every snap. How does he do? Where does he feel like he's at? What does he think of George? And then what does he think of Faison Brandon when he walks in the door in December?
Will Ricky Gibson be on the team next year?
Yes.
Yes, I agree.
Favorite Little Debbie cake? The poster says mine is sweet cake and Christmas tree.
Swiss cake. Swiss cake rolls. You said sweet cake.
Oh, sorry. Swiss cake. Swiss cake or Christmas tree?
I will. Can it be anything Little Debbie? Because I will tell you, Nutty Buddy.
Yeah, it can be anything Little Debbie.
Nutty Buddy.
It can.
Brent, what you got?
I mean, probably a Swiss cake roll. I had, and we're not going to go down the nostalgia road all morning here.
Do you get one of those when you stop at the
no.
gas station? No. Do you get one of those when you stop at the? I've
never bought an individual Little Debbie cake at a gas station. Whatever. Here's my thing with Little Debbie.
Gordonsville though? What about Gordon?
No. Here's my thing with Little Debbie. So when I was I did not eat the cafeteria lunch when I was an elementary kid, right?
Me either, which shocks everyone.
Yeah, shocks everyone. in my metal lunchbox, I had a Little Debbie cake of some kind every day of some kind. And so I've had everything from raisin cream pies to banana twins to fudge rounds to Swiss cake rolls.
Devil creams?
Do what?
Devil creams?
No devil creams. A lot of raisin cream pies for some reason. I don't remember why, because I don't think
I'm not surprised by that. I could have actually would have egged you for that.
Yeah. So I'm probably Swiss cake roll and run from there. I think the Star Crunch is an underrated Little Debbie, by the way.
I'm reneging my initial answer. It is not Nutty Buddies. It is oatmeal pies.
Yeah, those are like the OG. Those are fantastic.
It is oatmeal pies.
Nowadays, apparently, I mean, I guess you guys will know more. You have kids, and Hubs, you have a daughter that's in high school. They get DoorDash to bring them food at school and stuff, and parents bring them food.
Can't have that delivered at Gibbs High School. They put a ban on DoorDash deliveries.
I hear in West Knoxville it's on the reg, but Austin, did you mean to tell me that Craig and Sherry didn't bring you a little Chick-fil-A for lunch? Back in the day at
Rogersville City School through 4th grade, and then we moved to Morristown after that. But no, I had. If you go up there to Morristown and get in the basement over there, over at Craig and Sherry's, you'll find that metal Dukes of Hazzard lunchbox along with all kinds of other starting lineup figurines. I mean, buddy, I'm telling you, it's going to be a treasure trove when I have to go through that someday.
Nice. All right, a couple more here. We'll go to Aikens VFL 24. With the transfers impressing at guard, is it a given we see some movement in the portal, and who do we see sticking it out and nailing down those backup roles?
Yeah, I could see them losing an offensive lineman after spring.
An inside guy, yeah.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be a shock. I don't know who, but it wouldn't be a shock because they've got some numbers there, and they've got some guys who've been in the program for a bit waiting their turn, and they went and got 2 guards out of the transfer portal who look like plug and play guys, so that would make sense.
With center being one position and not 2 like guard and tackle, how hard is it to have depth there? If a guy like Satterwhite gets the job, others aren't going to want to wait around if they see themselves as a center. I mean, typically centers can be versatile, right? I mean, if you play center, you're also a guard, especially if you're like, second or third string, right?
I think in this day and age, your backup center is probably likely going to be one of your guards, who's also going to be your backup guard. I mean, I think that's, or even a starting guard, and you slide him over to center if there's an injury, and you plug in a guard. Because I think it is easier to have depth at guard than it is to have, 2 or 3 natural centers on your roster, and they all stay here.
Versatility.
Yeah, there you go. That's the word I'm looking for. Thanks, AP. Much more concise instead of my rambling on. Versatility, guys on the inside.
Last question, the one that Hubs waits for every single week, will go to Andrew. Best comedy movie ever. So this could take us down some rabbit holes.
Yeah, I'm the worst guy to ask this question because I haven't seen all my movie catalog ended about 15 years ago. It feels like, so I'm not going to embarrass myself and talk about movies I have not seen that you guys are getting ready to talk about as great comedies. If I need to laugh, if I'm in a mood where I need to laugh, I can find the original Coming to America and can laugh pretty hysterically through that movie. I got no problem with that one. I can laugh through Smokey and the Bandit, some old school movies there, but I don't know a lot of the new stuff. I don't know.
You're not rolling with Blazing Saddles, Hubs?
Nah, I'm not big. That one wasn't on my jam. I mean, Smokey and the Bandit watched a lot of, but again, the one where I need a laugh, I'll go find some Coming to America clips from the original one, or I'll watch that one. That's kind of the get yourself in a right mood type movie for me.
Eric, have you ever watched Spaceballs?
No.
Okay. Just ask. I like it.
I have. It's not my favorite either.
I like anything that, I mean, I can laugh at anything. So I like this comedy period. I don't know if there's a number one, I mean, I'm pretty happy with whatever.
I mean, and a lot of people think he's overrated, which I don't understand, but I mean, Will Ferrell's hilarious. So, Anchorman, Old School, even though he's not the best character in Old School, even though he's fantastic in Old School.
Billy Madison.
Yeah. Friday is a hilarious movie. Again, there's a lot of good ones. I don't think there's one right answer to this. You can kind of go down a number of different avenues in this regard. So, Andrew, as always, appreciate the question. Thank you, everybody.
What is your movie stop? Regardless of genre, whether it's comedy, horror,
he loves romantic stuff.
Do what?
He loves romance.
No, I mean, just saying, if you're passing through the TV, the remote stops there. Do you have one? Anybody got one?
I mean, sci-fi. Star Wars is always on.
Specific movie, like if Star Wars if you're flipping a channel, there's Star Wars. Are you putting the remote down and watching an extended period of that?
Yeah. Empire Strikes Back.
Okay,
I would do that, but I mean, I would like Jurassic Park. So anything like big box office. Let me tell you, my jam, my go-to is Batman. You put anything Batman on, and I can watch that all day long. I love Batman. That's the best. That's the best superhero. Even though he doesn't really have any superpowers, I love the old Michael Keaton. Like the old school. When it eventually hit like movie theaters and wasn't just a TV show. But I can go back and watch the old Adam West Batmans. I love that stuff.
Yeah, just curious.
What about you? What's your go-to if you're flipping through the channels? You got to stop.
Andy.
If Apollo 13's on, I'm watching that movie. I don't
know
why.
This my kids yesterday.
I don't have any. I mean, it's good. I don't know why that's the one that is an absolute. Like if it comes on, it's like okay, I'm done. Like okay, I know what I'm doing for the next hour and a half.
But it's real. It's a real story.
I mean, it's just that one is a drop for me. I tell you another one that
Remember
is
the
rarely.
Titans?
Do what?
Remember the Titans for me.
Yeah. Another one that's rarely on that you don't ever see, but if it's on somewhere, I stop. Is For the Love of the Game with Kevin Costner and Vince Scully. That's a terrific movie because of Vince Scully. Terrific movie. I will watch that one just to hear him commentate a make-believe baseball game.
Major League for me as well. And even though I don't think it's nearly as good, the ending to Major League 2 just is my jam. When Randy Quaid is running his mouth and he says, shove it, Lord Mouth or whatever, and he's like, oh my gosh, it's him. And he opens that door and she's looking through the binoculars like Dooley looking for Rommel. And she goes, it's him. Crank it, Jerry. And then, dude, that I'm telling you, man, goosebumps on my arm. I love that, dude. That fires me up.
Dude, MLB, there's nothing like MLB Network in the offseason where they just show all these old movies over and over. The Natural, Love of the Game, Field of Dreams, Major League, Little Big League is a good one. What's the kid when pitches for the Cubs and like
Rookie of the Year, right?
Rookie of the Year, yeah. There's a lot of good baseball movies out there. All right, that'll do it here for this edition of the Volquest Mailbag Podcast. As always, Andrew, great question here to end our show. Appreciate you guys sending in questions about basketball, football, recruiting, baseball, all that and more. Tennessee and Wofford tonight, NCAA tournament round of 64. Grant and Rob are on the scene in Lexington. They'll give you coverage on the Journal's Quarters and over at Volquest.com. Baseball this weekend at Alabama. I'm going to be down there Friday and Saturday, so looking forward to that. And, of course, spring practice returns on Tuesday of next week. No better place than right here at Volquest.com, Brent, to stay engaged and stay up to date on everything Tennessee athletics that has to offer.
Yep, would certainly love for you to join the family and be a part if you're not already. And we got a great deal right now. It's $1 for a week. Give us a shot for $1 and see what you think. I don't think you'll be disappointed. Plenty of stuff going on right now with multiple sports and plenty of discussion about all of it on the General's Quarters. So come be a part.
Big thanks to Exterior Home Solution for being the presenting sponsor of the show, 865-524-5888. You can check them out as well online at exteriorhomesolutions.com. For Grant Ramey that joined us the first half of the show, Austin Price, Brent Hubbs, I'm Eric Kane. Appreciate you guys as always here on the Volquest Mailbag Podcast.